Okay.
All righty, Lucy.
Okay, hi everybody. Nice night last night. But we can talk about that later. I'm introducing Jean Henderson, who I consider a friend and colleague, and she told me how to introduce her, but I'm going to add some stuff. She's currently serving on the leadership team for the Greater Cincinnati Voter Rights Collaborative. And she also serves on the leadership team for Citizens Not Politicians Fair Districts. She's also, I'm pretty sure, a pretty active member of the League of Women Voters. League of Women Voters is involved in both of those organizations and involved in fair districts petitioning. And I've worked with Jean for, I don't know, just a couple of years, but I will just say personally, she is like a hard-working volunteer, completely thorough in the work she does follow-up, engages people, organizes people. She's amazing, amazing. And one of the things she does, I'll just mention that I'm part of is, I think you kind of spearheaded this, Jean, enlisting barbershops and beauty parlors to take voter materials during election time and primary, well, not primary, but election time. So I'm one of the volunteers that takes it to like a barbershop or a beauty salon, but Jean organizes all that for our community. It's pretty, I thought it was real ingenious, and it's a great asset to the community. So anyway, I'll stop and let Jean do the presentation on fair districts.
Well, thank you for that. I've never had an introduction like that, but thank you so much, Lucy. So we're here to talk about citizens, not politicians, and it's all in the name. It's citizens, not politicians. Okay, come on, you can move. Okay, so I'm speaking on behalf of Fair Districts, which is, the League of Women Voters, also led by Common Cause, and other organizations like the ACLU and others. But I'm speaking also on behalf of citizens, not politicians. So we'll talk a little bit about redistricting and gerrymandering, but you are all very schooled at this. So we'll just touch on those and really get into how we can fix this and what the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment is going to do. So just to go over redistricting and why we do redistricting. So every 10 years after the census, we redraw the lines for districts so that populations in those districts are approximately equal, and every district has about the same amount of power or voting power. What happens when what gerrymandering is when lines are drawn to benefit one particular party or an incumbent. And this has happened in Ohio, both by Democrats and Republicans. So they manipulate the district so that basically our elected officials are selecting their voters instead of the other way around. And we've all felt this. And an example of how we see this is in, for example, our Ohio House. Normally in Ohio, our vote is about 55% Republican to 45% Democrat. So the Republicans won 55.8% of the vote for Ohio House, but because of gerrymandering, hold 67% of the seats. In the Ohio Senate, it's even worse. So Republicans won 60% of the vote, but hold 78.8% of the seats. So this is what gerrymandering does. So we all know what's so bad about gerrymandering. It creates a situation where our representatives are picking their voters. There's no accountability for our representatives because they've drawn districts so that they can win. So they really don't have to be responsive to the people that they represent. They can be, but they don't have to be. Folks get disheartened by this. They think nothing is changing. Things that I want aren't being passed. and people leave the whole voting system. It just steals the power away from the voter. It creates hyper-partisan candidates, especially during the primaries, which become the important race, because we know by the end of the general election who's going to win, because the primaries become the important races. So didn't we try to fix this? And you all know, because I know that you worked on this. Sure, we did. We tried redistricting in a fair way twice, in 2015 and in 2018. We voted, passed by 70 to 74%. The problem was, it was a great idea. The problem was is that our politicians just couldn't help themselves and not resist the temptation to draw maps that benefited themselves. Okay, this is all what we know because we've done this before. So what do we do now? So now we think citizens, not politicians, is our way through this. It gives the power of the pen to the people. So let's talk about the amendment. It's a constitutional amendment, which is why we're collecting signatures just like we did on the last two. And it puts the power to draw the districts in the hands of Ohio citizens. Can Ohio citizens draw good maps? Well, yes. After the last redistricting cycle, there were really, really good maps drawn by college professors, political science students, geographers, and they were much more well-rounded and fair than the maps that were drawn, of course, by our legislators. So here's what we'll do. We'll be creating a 15-member Ohio Redistricting Commission made of 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 5 independents. And they're going to come from all parts of Ohio and represent all different kinds of people, farmers, business owners, etc. It's going to ban former politicians, political party officials, lobbyists, large donors, but we'll get into that a little bit more. It's going to require fair and impartial districts by making it unconstitutional to draw voting districts that discriminate. And it's going to require that we operate in an open and transparent process. So voters get to draw the lines, the process is open and transparent, and politicians will be held accountable if they're not listening to their constituents. So how would this amendment work? So the maps must comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. They must not favor or disfavor a political party. That's what gerrymandering is. And we know that Ohio is one of the most gerrymandered states in the nation. Maps can't take incumbents into consideration or where incumbents live. And they must preserve communities of interest. Now, communities of interest might be communities that share a watershed. They might be communities that have a huge school district that range over a large rural area. They might be a racial community or a community of specific cultural aspects to it, but that's what a community of interest. And most of the time, those are the communities that lines are drawn right in the middle of. So here are some of the rules that of how the commission will operate. There are going to be 5 regions in Ohio, and there must be hearings in every one of those regions. What we know about the hearings is that instead of like in the past cycle, we might get a 12 to 24-hour notification of when a hearing is, we'll get 2 weeks notification of when the next hearing is. Or if we're bumping up against a deadline, you'll get at least 3 days to make sure that if you want to give testimony or if you want to be at this hearing, you'll have time to make plans, unlike which has happened in the past. All census and voting data is going to be made public. So, you know, if you're an interested person and you're interested in mapping, you'll have that information. Hearings are required before and after the maps are drafted, and they must be reviewed by the public before they're adopted. So, legal challenges. any elector in Ohio can file a challenge to the commission's redistricting plan. So what should be happening is that instead of one elector making a complaint or filing a challenge, they're going to put them all into a bucket, and all the challenges will go in at the same time. Challenges go to the Ohio Supreme Court, which has exclusive jurisdiction. Now, they don't have a lot of power over or decision-making over what's happening in the redistricting commission. Their job is to say yes or no. We did not follow the rules so that it reflects Ohio's 55% Republican to 45% Democrat split. Their job is to make sure that that looks pretty good. They have two special masters who will, in the event of any kind of a disagreement or an impasse, they will be there for the redistricting commission to work with, to fix problems and send it back to the redistricting commission. Outside of that, the courts will not be informed about what's happening. It will be between the redistricting commission and the two special masters. So how are the citizens commissioners chosen? Who's eligible to serve? Citizens must be a continuous resident of Ohio for 6 years, and they must be registered to vote. That's it. And you can apply. There will be an open application process. You can apply to be on this commission if you wish. Who's not eligible to serve? Anyone in a partisan position over the last 6 years, a candidate for elected officials, registered lobbyists, and any member of their families. So there will be this open application process. Politicians, lobbyists will be screened out, and a bipartisan panel will pick 45 finalists from all the applicants. Now, what's interesting about this is a bipartisan panel is going to pick the beginning of the commission. This bipartisan panel is all former Ohio judges, and there will be 8 Republican judges who pick 2 Democratic judges and 8 Democratic judges who will pick 2 Republican judges. So there will be 4 judges, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats in the end. And they will serve on this panel along with a firm that will help them go through all of the background vetting that's going to happen to select the commissioners. So,
Gee,
yes.
question while you're on this slide, you said 4 of each, and on the slide it says 5 of each.
We're not there yet. I was telling you how this bipartisan.
Okay, fine. I just,
Right. I was just telling you how the bipartisan panel was selected, not the commissioners.
oh,
The
these are, okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
That's okay, but thank you for letting me know. So this panel is going to start out by selecting 6 of the those people that are vetted and went through the application process. They're going to pick 6 of them randomly, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 2 unaffiliated or independents. Those 6 people are going to pick the remaining 9 on the commission. So then there will end up being 5 Republicans, 5 independents, and 5 Democrats on this commission. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So this is our chance to end gerrymandering in Ohio. We're trying to.
Excuse me. That makes sense, but can you repeat it?
Yes. Okay. I'm not going to talk about how how the judges who are on this bipartisan panel. Okay, I'm going to talk about just how the commissioners are selected. So there are 45 in the beginning, right? These have all been filtered out. There's no politicians, no lobbyists. These are all Ohioans. There's going to be 45 of them. And what will happen is this bipartisan panel will randomly select 6 of them, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 2 independents. And then those 6 will select the remaining 9 to form 15, but they must be 5 Republicans, 5 independents, and 5 Democrats. So our commission, our independent redistricting commission will be made up of 15 Ohioans. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Oops, I'm going backwards, sorry. So this is our opportunity to unrig the game. And it's time for Ohioans to draw the lines. Now you have these slides and you're going to get all these, all this information. I know that you already have folks that are signed up to volunteer. I know you have a great team in Northside. But you'll have all these slides and you can share these slides with your members. If you ever want to review them, or if you want to take a look at how things are set up, feel free, you will have them. So let's open things up for questions. Do you want me to leave this up or take it down?
You can leave it up, Jean. That's fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's open this up for questions then. And you run this, Dan.
Okay, Greg?
So Jean, thanks for sharing the slides. They're very informative. So the one question I have is that the commission this time just completely ignored the Supreme Court. So what's to keep them from ignoring it this time?
Well, the people that ignored it were the people who drew the lines last time, who were our representatives. They're not involved in the process anymore. So what I can say is that the people in Citizens Not Politicians are mostly judges and lawyers, and they have been around through this process the last several times, and they worked very carefully to make sure they were taking steps so that I'm not going to say this is foolproof, because who knows what the opposition might throw at us, but it's as foolproof as they could humanly possibly set it up. But remember, this is being drawn by citizens, not politicians, so they don't have anything to do with this process at all.
But can't the state representatives or the senators object to this and take it to the Supreme Court then and say that they're not fair?
Anybody that's an Ohio electorate can do that. But again, the Ohio Supreme Court, the only thing that they're basically looking at is whether or not the maps were reflected Ohio's voting pattern of 55% to 45%. The people that are making the decisions about this are the independent commission and the two special masters. So that's the best answer that I can give you from what we know. Is there going to be shenanigans? My guess would be yes, but I think they took every step possible to make sure that the maps drawn by the independent commission were the maps that we are going to use.
Okay, and one follow-up question, sorry. So I think this time they went to the Supreme Court, the Ohio Supreme Court, and the Ohio Supreme Court said that they were not fair districts, and then they took it to a federal court. So in the slides that you presented, can this ever go to a federal court where it might be a Republican leaning Court of Appeals or something? And
yeah, according
getting my
to
drift?
the information that we have, the Ohio Supreme Court has exclusive jurisdiction. So I am not a lawyer, but I believe that that's as far as it goes, that it doesn't go any further than that. That's the best
Okay.
answer I can give you right now. I do have a really good FAQ that I'm just running through as we're talking. So if I find anything, I'll let you know, but
Okay.
that's my understanding of
I just, sorry to be so cynical, but I just remember last time when we did this,
Yeah,
we thought that was gonna solve everything, and then, we're back in the boat again, getting with petitions and trying to get it on the ballot, so.
Yeah.
But thank you for the information, appreciate it.
Sean?
Just to clarify, they didn't take it to federal court. What they took to federal court is we don't have maps because the Supreme Court keeps throwing them out. And so what the federal court said was, well, if you don't get a map together, you're going to have to use one of the bad ones. So they didn't challenge the map. They just challenged the lack of maps. Okay, that's number one. Number two, in one of the huddles, I thought, based on what they said, I couldn't even apply for this commission because I do a lot of Democratic lit drops. I have a lot of signs in my yard. But you're saying it's only lobbyists and former politicians and families. So
there's going to be a vetting process. They're going to look at everybody's background, how you vote, whether you vote in the primary for Republicans one year, whether you vote in the primary for Democrats one year. Ask you to explain that. Did you do that for a particular reason? They're going to look at your donations. There are a lot of things that they're going to look at to make sure that I think they get people that are grounded in wanting to do the right thing, and that possibly aren't misrepresenting themselves. I think that's the best way to put it.
okay. One last thing. Normally I go around my neighborhood and I go to Democrats only. With this, I was just going door to door.
Mhm.
And it was surprising because I feel it's totally nonpartisan. What the hell? But it turns out the Republicans really had no clue what I was talking about. They were hesitant to sign, even though I tried to explain it to them. It's going to be nonpartisan, blah, blah, blah. There are all these, and they were like, do they have a website? And I said, sure. So one of the things I wanted to do was to show them a gerrymandered map and a map that's not gerrymandered. So I went to Frank LaRosa's website, and the U.S. congressional districts are in nice bright colors, and the map's beautiful. Then I
Right.
went to the state congressional map, and there are all these faint colors. I'm partially colorblind, but even these maps, the colors don't differentiate very well at all. And I'm not sure, what the problem is. And then the other thing I tried to do was find one of the maps I know was drawn the last time by, people here in Cincinnati and elsewhere, which is an ungerrymandered map. And I couldn't find anything to show me one of those maps because I wanted to show that to my neighbors. So do you have any idea where I could find one of those maps?
For Ohio, Ohio and Senate and Ohio representatives. Let me see if I can find some for you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll contact Lucy or Dan and see if I can get those to you.
Okay.
Great. Sue Ellen?
Yeah, so just a question about the process. It seems like there's quite a few moving parts. So I hope it works out smoothly, but I'm not positive, once you get the commission in place, what does their job look like? Do they draw maps, or do they just look at maps that are submitted to them, or where do they get the maps?
They will be, like the last time, they will be drawing the maps. They will be working with technical people who know the mapping software. They will have all the rules laid out in front of them, and then they will start working on mapping. They'll be able to start fairly broadly and then zero in on particular areas, but they will actually be doing the mapping. There are 7 other states that have independent commissions like this, and ours was most closely modeled after the Michigan Independent, Independent Redistricting Commission.
Okay, great. Well, you know what you're getting into, I guess. It sounds like a big job to me, but I know there are others who would, want to work on something like that.
Hey, Lucy?
Yeah, just a question. I've heard, I know the 5, 5, and 5, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and no politicians, no lobbyists. But do they talk at all about what they are looking for in terms of demographics, geographics, a balance of age,
Mhm.
race, geography of Ohio, are there things they're looking for? What else are they looking for besides what they're not looking for?
I don't have specifics, like I don't think we were given anything more specific than it's going to be broadly that they want demographically, geographically, a broad representation of Ohio. They want to go, like I said, from farmers to businessmen, from women to men, racially diverse, and just make it like Ohio. But I can't give you any specifics. I'm just looking to see if I have any, which I don't.
Okay.
That do it for now, Luce?
Thanks, yeah.
All right, Matt?
So do you know why the focus of the commission is on maintaining the 55-45 split rather than drawing every district to be maximally competitive? Is
Okay,
that
let me, no, I want to answer this using my FAQ. Let's see. Now we're talking about mapping criteria. Okay, first and foremost, each proposed plan must contain single-member districts that are geographically contiguous, meaning it's not broken. They must comply with the United States and federal laws, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Following that, in order of priority, districts must be reasonably equal in population based on the most recent federal census. Ensure opportunities for racial and ethnic and language minorities to elect candidates of their choice and preserve communities of interest. So I read that because, let's see. Now ask your question one more time.
so you just mentioned a couple times that one of the criteria that the commission and the court specifically would be looking at is that do the maps match the 55-45 split? And I'm just wondering why that was chosen and not a way to make each district as competitive as possible instead.
Because that's the job of the Independent Redistricting Commission, and if needed, the special masters. They're trying to keep this part of it between those two bodies. The drawing of the maps and getting the maps to where they're supposed to be is the job of the commission and not the job of our Ohio Supreme Court.
But I'm just asking why, if that is the case, are we mentioning the 55-45 at all?
Well, you know what? Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't address that, but I can find out for you.
Okay, thanks.
But that's the way people voted. So if you don't do a 55-45, then people can claim it's gerrymandered.
But if you do draw it to 55-45 and don't draw each district to be as maximally competitive, then people can say the same thing.
Here's
Right,
here's a little something that's let me give you this. After the public hearing on, say there are objections to the maps and they go in front of the Ohio Supreme Court, it says after a public hearing on the objections and review of the record before the commission, the Ohio Supreme Court will rule whether the commission abused its discretion in determining that the adopted plan complies with the criteria set forth in the amendment. So there have to be specifics inside the amendment, and I'd have to go through that amendment more closely to see what it is that they can object to, what criteria, what criteria it is that they can make objections to.
So the main reason I'm asking is because these are supposedly to be used for 10 years, correct?
No,
Correct.
Like
no,
even
till next
the next round,
It'll be less than for
Yeah.
this.
6 years.
Yeah.
six.
be able to use this process for the foreseeable future. Want these to produce 10-year maps eventually.
Yes.
Right.
Looking at a percentage of who's Republican and who's Democrat in 2030, that very likely is going to be changed by 2040, one way or the other. So the maps get less and less accurate as time goes on.
Well, I don't know that they'll not look at that ratio. And once we have an independent redistricting commission, yeah, I'm not sure that that's going to, how that will come into play. I can't, honestly, I can't answer that because that's pretty far in the weeds for me. But I can see
Yeah.
if I can find the answer.
Yeah.
I would, just a comment, I would think it would be based on the statewide races, like we have a Republican governor.
Mhm.
55% voted for him, 45% didn't, or something like that. I have no idea if that's correct, but I'm just guessing. Either that or the overall number of people who tend to vote or something like that.
Yeah.
But
could
I had a,
I can't raise my hand on the computer
Okay.
for some
go
reason.
ahead.
So I want to interrupt if you don't mind
Go
and
ahead,
ask
Sue.
the question, do they get paid, the commissioners, and how are they trained?
They do get paid. First of all, this whole amendment, there is it's written into the budget. So that there is financial support here, but yes, the commissioners do get kind of a stipend. They get paid for each day that they work. I don't think it's a lot. The commissioners will be compensated $125 per day, plus reimbursement for expenses. Oops, you're,
My question, Gene, was, can you give us an update at all on how the signature collection is going?
sure. Citizens Not Politicians isn't sharing numbers, but I can tell you that they're very pleased at this time.
Okay.
I would
Right.
I would imagine if they weren't, we would be hearing things like, we got to buckle down. You know, the language would be different.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
what I can tell you.
All right. All right, Chad, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, having sat through a number of the huddles, I was under the understanding that the only thing that can be challenged is if the maps don't match that 55-45, that there are no other challenges that they can make. That's the only thing they can look at and challenge.
Oh, that's what I was saying about what the Ohio Supreme Court can look at. You know, most of the work about problems with or impasses in the redistricting process, that's going to happen between the commission and the special masters. That really from my understanding, the Supreme Court really just has that one function to look at the proportionality. Does it
Right.
reflect the way Ohioans vote?
Mhm.
Okay. Right. We have some more questions.
You guys ask hard questions.
We've been at it for a while.
I know. I
And
know.
helped out with all the others. And not to be negative, but just a comment, I'm sure there's gonna be challenges, and my fear is it gets wrapped up in court so long uh, that finally they say, well, we just can't get this done. We'll have to wait 6 more years. Something like that.
The timeline is this, when we pass this in November of 2024, they'll start mid-year working on, they'll put the commission together and they'll start the mapping process. And the hopes is that in 2026, well, not the hopes, if we put together this commission and they create the maps, we'll be voting on the new maps in 2026.
Mhm.
So that's the timeline.
Okay. So it'd really be 4 years they'd be in place,
Right.
basically. Yeah,
Mhm. And then we'll have this commission in place for when we do the next census.
right. Would it be the same commission for a while, or do you know, Jean?
You know what? I don't think so. I think
Okay.
that
They
there will be
start
a
over.
new selection of individuals.
Okay. All right. Shot your hand still up. Did you have another?
Oh, really? No.
Okay.
I'm just a little bothered that they're not telling us how many, I was talking to somebody from the League of Women Voters the other day, and she said, I'm concerned. And I was like, well, I'm a little concerned too, because they're not throwing out any numbers. And I've heard that they're like 85% of the signatures they're getting are good, which is, normally it's like 50%. So that's good, but to not come up with the number, that's a little bit bothersome to me.
It seems like they did that with the other recent amendments too. They didn't give out numbers. That's just my recall. Greg?
Yeah, so Gene, if this is based off of Michigan, and Michigan went Democrat, I think, the last cycle, are they getting any complaints that their districts are still gerrymandered after they use this method?
Well, I think there were some issues recently in Michigan. I know that they were in the news, so I think it had something to do with their communities of interest or racial communities. So I don't know how that was resolved. But we have to follow Ohio rules. We may have followed the Michigan method in how we selected our commission, etc., but Ohio's got its own set of rules that we've got to work within. It most closely resembles Michigan's structure.
In case somebody missed it, I'll just read it real quick. Brewster had asked the question, is there a plan to collect signatures at the polls during the primary later this month? And Greg said yes, there was a plan to put that in place. Yeah.
Yes, we've got a nice little sign-up genius that is going out through fair districts, and I know that the ODP has plans, so I think we're all going to have people there on primary day, and early vote, there will be people out.
Ruth? Yeah.
Oh, okay. First of all, I remember that we were told not to tell how many signatures as we're getting them for the Ohio River, so that the river has the right to exist and flourish. And I don't remember why we were told that, but there's a reason. Some genius knows why. But my question though, I just wonder, this is because in my family, we're doing genealogies, and we just found out that we have cousins that are married to each other. There's 12 generations between it. But my point is this: family, what does that mean? I mean, I hope they make that pretty broad, because
Well,
hope it's broad.
good question. I can't answer that question because the only information I have is, politician and family, elected official and family. So I'd have to go further into the
I'm just,
into the amendment to see if it's defined.
I'm just raising the question. Oh, look at my name I meant to change it. Okay. And I guess the other thing I just want to say is whoever put this together has to be, I think, very, very smart because it's complicated. And I think I'm glad we're having Michigan as like an example. That's all I'm going to say is I'm just glad we're doing what we can and not just sitting back and letting things go. God knows.
Okay, Chuck?
Sue?
Yeah, I'm back. From what I understand, when they were drawing this up, they talked to every state that does this. And they said what works and what doesn't work. And they came up with, put this petition together with what does work. And I also heard there was a convention in California in December about people interested in doing this in their state. And they said, if you're going to do this, this. Don't do these. Ohio had all the do's and none of the don'ts. So they've done a lot of research to come up with this. That's why it's so good.
The 7 states that have independent commissions right now are Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Michigan, Montana, and Washington. And ours most closely resembles that of Michigan.
Well,
I'm gonna lower my hand. And Greg, you had a question.
Yeah, I think Sue's got a question too, because she's trying to raise her hand. But anyway, go ahead,
Okay.
Sue, and I'll ask my question after you.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I know people who would like to get the training, haven't got it yet. I've had the training. I have some petitions. Where should they, what should they, how can they find out about getting the training?
They could go to fairdistrictsohio.org or the very first where it says to support fair maps in Ohio, volunteer, sign up here. You can share that link with them. And that's how they could sign up. And once they sign up, the process is that that information comes to the Cincinnati team and we send a welcome, they have to train. We send them a welcome letter with all the links and how to pick up their petitions. And we support in any way, whether it's, if they want to do a little drive-through in their driveway, if they want to collect at big events, we're here to support all of that. And our group, we have our Cincinnati group, we have big events. Like on Sunday, we're going to have a big drive-through signing event, which is going to be at UC Blue Ash parking lot. So if you know any people that want to sign, send them there. We are planning a launch. We have a lot of events. Our Facebook page has smaller events that you can go to on your own. Some are events that you need to use a sign up genius for. Others are things that we're saying, hey, look, here's an event. You might be able to get some signatures here. I just did the FC Cincinnati game. That was a great place to be in Washington Park. We'll have signups for that, but for right now, I think we already do have a sign up genius for the FC Cincinnati games, and that sign up genius is in our welcome letter. And I think we continuously try to share that with all our volunteers. So if you haven't seen it, I'll make sure it goes out tomorrow because we're having a leadership meeting tomorrow.
These links are also in our newsletter. If you want to look there, and you'll find them soon. For the signing up for the training, what have you.
And you can also, you can listen to a recording and be trained too.
Yeah, I was going to say,
You don't have to,
there's a
you know.
YouTube video out there too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I did that and it worked out great. But
you could-
I'm a little, I guess I haven't tried too hard, but when I don't really understand how drive-through ones work. Do you want people to just show up with their petition at a drive-through thing? Or
No. A drive-through is where we have volunteers with petitions ready for.
Right.
We
That's what-
advertise that people can come and meet us there. We will be at a place where anybody could come, drive through, sign a petition and drive out.
But who's we? I mean, I have petitions that need signatures. How do you
Well-
choose the person who's gonna?
Well, if you're on our Facebook page, that was the first place we did a call out. We did a shout out and said, I did it. I said, I need 12 volunteers to work at a drive-through on March 10th. And that's because I got all that I needed. I didn't have to reach out further to abroad, to everybody, to send an email to everyone. If I couldn't get those volunteers, then I would reach out to everybody.
Well, I want to do the one at the polls. So, Greg, are you gonna put out something, a schedule for signing up to do it there?
Some of the ward chairs are doing it. That was one of the questions I had for Jean, was that now that we have petitions at the Democratic Party headquarters, how do we tell you guys what initiatives we're going to do?
Well, that's an interesting question, Greg. There is a meeting that happens on Thursdays at 11 where the Citizens Not Politicians folks talk to all of us that are all the groups like the ODP, Fair Districts, Red, Wine and Blue, ACLU. We're all different entities. They're going to try to be like traffic cops and say, for example, opening day parade. We may all want to be there, but they might say, okay, Fair Districts, you handle this end of the parade. And Red, Wine and Blue, you go here. They kind of want to direct us. So do you have an invitation to that meeting?
I do not know.
Okay.
Andy said he was going to ask if I was allowed to join it.
Okay. If you're in touch with Andy, he's the right person, but
Okay.
just stay, sit on him a
reason-
little bit. He's got a lot going on. So get back to him because that's how that's going to happen. I know it's kind of confusing because as Fair Districts, we've been out here for months organizing everything and setting up these events. And now all of a sudden Citizens Not Politicians is ready to work with us. So it's just a shift. We all need to shift a little bit. And I'm
Right.
quite happy that they're getting involved the way they are. Because we know.
Because that was one of the reasons why I was going to mention it, was because some of the ward chairs are scheduling people to work at their local polls. So I just didn't want you guys to show up and then us also to be there. Kind of a wasted effort to have,
Yeah, I think that
extra people.
is likely to happen, until I just think that little bit of crossing over is likely to happen, but I think they're doing their best to make sure everybody's spread out. But
What would help though is if the Democratic Party, Fair Districts and Citizens all talk to each other, especially on election day. I mean, I understand how that happens, but it's maddening when it happens. If
Yeah.
you've covered your poll with volunteers and then 4 more show up and, it's just maddening. And I get it. And I've done it over and over again and seen candidates pour their volunteers in once we've already covered our polls, but to try to coordinate it ahead of time would be awesome. I think that's what Greg's saying. Greg, I don't know if you're gonna try to go representing Hamilton County Democratic Party to a meeting, but
Yeah.
I
was just gonna say,
my
Gwen,
frustration is people could be at other polls if they're not doubled up at certain polls. Because there are
Right.
certain polls that don't get covered then, so.
just so you know, Lucy, one of the things that has been done, and we just got a Sign Up Genius for this, and we'll be sharing it out, is polling locations that tend to be neglected in this way. We have a list of those. And one of them is on Chase. It's the center. What's the center on Chase Avenue? It's a polling
McGee?
location.
McKee?
Yay.
Well, there used to be, they closed the polling place at North Presbyterian and moved it to McKee Recreation Center.
Yeah, and I just thought, when I
And-
saw that, I thought, oh, your group will be all over that one.
We are all over it. We're covering the poll already.
Right, so
Um,
that's what I thought. When I saw that, I thought, we already have people that are gonna cover this, so if you see that sign up, Genius, put your folks on there.
And that's coming from Fair Districts.
It's coming from citizens, not politicians. We're meeting about this tomorrow. We have the sign up Genius. We're gonna talk about how to distribute it so that everybody can see it. All
Yeah,
of our
because I know that
volunteers.
Harriet has enlisted a lot of volunteers for Ward 23.
Right.
So I think our ward will probably be pretty well covered.
Well, maybe what we need to do then, Greg, with Harriet, is to get a hold of the sign up Genius and put our people in that we already have signed up. Because I
Right,
already signed up 5 people for my poll.
right. But I mean, we also have Sandy Summers that's going to cover her 4 polling locations. And I
Yeah.
think Bonnie Dunkelman's going to
Right.
cover her.
It's
So I
happening
don't,
everywhere.
and
Yeah.
to answer Sue Ellen's question, I don't know if Pat Bruns is going to do it or not. So
Yeah.
we're just letting the ward chairs kind of work on it.
Right.
I know this is where I think there's a lot of moving parts. You know, this is, there's a lot happening, especially right now with early vote and primary day coming up. And, you know, hopefully some of these sign up Geniuses will do a little bit of traffic directing. But like I say, we just got this hot off the press. So we're going to talk about it tomorrow and distribute.
Okay. Gene, do
I
you
just say
foresee
one more-
needing the, do you
Can
foresee
I just say
needing
one
the
more little
show?
thing?
ahead.
Gene, the Form 50, the illustrious Form 15.
Yeah.
Andy told me that there were quite a few signatures that were thrown out for issue 1 because Form 15s weren't done correctly. And just for everyone in the room, this Form 15 allows you to distribute, like if I give them to Lucy, if Lucy has filled out the Form 15, then she can give 2 to Sue or something like that, or 2 more to Sue Ellen.
Mhm.
If the petitions are signed out to you, please don't give them out to anyone else. They're your responsibility. You can't share them with anyone else, is
That
my
has
understanding.
always been like that since the beginning. If you are collecting signatures, those are your books, not to be shared with anyone else. And a Form 15 approved person is allowed to distribute to another person, you know, or group. But when you have petitions, you own those petitions.
Mhm.
And that's always been clear from the beginning.
Okay. Do you foresee needing to show anything more on the screen, Gene?
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm gonna take back reclaim the host here, just and I'm not going to share anything at the moment. I just wanted to see everybody, make it a little easier right here. And welcome, Dee. Didn't know you were with us.
I just got on, thanks.
Yeah, okay. Did we have any other questions right now?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I
Dee.
hope it's something that hasn't been covered. I did
Quite
my,
all right.
I did my training for the petition signature gathering. And I wanted to try to get the petitions. I haven't, I got emails that said you can go to this place at this certain time or day, you know. And
So
I
you
have,
got a welcome letter from us, and inside that welcome letter tells you where you can pick up your petitions.
okay,
And we tried to put them all over town so that it's close to different people. So where do you live?
I live in Pleasant Ridge, so I'm closest to you, Jane, in Blue Ash. Are you there tomorrow?
My hours are tomorrow, 12 to 3.
12 to 3, okay, that's good. And one other question, how long do we keep the petitions? I've heard that, you know, you have to get them back in within a certain time.
We have call-ins every 2 weeks now. This is what citizens, not politicians, wanted. But normally, if you've got a petition with 2 or 3 signatures and you know you're going out
Yeah,
on the following weekend, I mean, keep them. If
okay,
you've got half a book, turn it in. Now
Okay.
they're doing an all call in. When they do an all call in and they want everything to come in, but we'll let you know when we send out the email that announces that.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
And you can also turn in every week if you want to. We have office hours every week. So if you're filling up books and you don't want them in your house, drop them off.
Okay,
But we have to turn them in every 2 weeks to Columbus.
yeah. Okay.
All right, is there anything else? Any questions?
I think the next turn is March 21st.
The
Sue,
next-
do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I just want to clarify. Now, with the last petition drive, reproductive rights, I was working with a group of who had booklets, and I was the person who, along with Greg, we were coordinating the distribution of booklets. And so we filled out a sheet. Each of us filled out a sheet, right, Greg? And gave us the authority, I guess is the word, to distribute booklets to other petition gatherers.
If I filled out a sheet, I don't remember it. So
We filled out something. I thought I filled it out in something that you had, but maybe not. When
Did
I
you have
first
to
got,
have your ID? Did you have to show your ID also?
I don't remember.
Okay,
I mean,
that's what a Form 15.
So that is Form 15. Is that what I'm hearing?
What you're describing is that I don't know that that's what you filled out, but it is something that you have to fill out if you're going to distribute. And you also have to turn in your identification with that, as far as like sending a copy of your ID.
And so where do you get Form 15s?
You would have to ask me or Tony D'Ambrosio. He's taking care of the Form 15s. I mean, there are people that, for example, if you're handling petitions, if you're a transporter, like you're driving petitions from one place or another, you need a Form 15. If you're going to do office hours at the League of Women Voters and volunteer and handle petitions, you need a Form 15. So are you going to distribute? What is your reason for wanting a Form 15?
To distribute?
To other groups or to other people?
Well, I know individuals who are willing to get petitions and just, and collect signatures.
Okay.
And I see it as an easier step for them if they work through me, instead of each one of them having to drive to a location. I'm willing to drive to them, to be the person that does the footwork.
Then you would have to apply for a Form 15. I'll connect you, Sue Magnet. I'll connect you to Tony, and then you can, he'll notify Citizens Not Politicians, and then I think it comes from AMT, and you'll get information about it, and then you apply. It takes 24 to 48 hours after it's in, and then it goes to the Secretary of State's office, and then it comes back. You might not hear for between 5 days and 10 days.
Okay.
Jean, would you mind sharing an email address people could just, write to and request that information? Or-
Yeah. Do you want me to put it in the chat?
Sure, that would be great. Jean Henderson, 517.
Yes.
There you go. Born May 17th, right?
Yeah. I didn't put the year in though.
Let's see, I'd say around 91, something like that.
Well, There's
There.
so much there's so much to know about this, and there's they are running a very tight ship because of they want to be prepared for anything the opposition might throw at us and say, oops, we're going to throw these signatures out because of X, Y, and Z. So they're very, very particular about everything.
I do have one last question, unless somebody else has one. Are there any of the states you mentioned actually using maps that were collected through this process?
They're all using their maps that were, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I have one more question. What was it? I do have one.
That's okay. Take your time.
Okay, let me think.
You can always send it to me also.
I lost it.
Okay.
Could I ask for clarification? When you said all the other states are using this system, do you mean the ones that have put it on the ballot and gotten it?
The others that have independent redistricting commissions, you might not have been there. They're Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Michigan, Montana, and Washington. Those states that have independent commissions. Yes.
Okay, I thought of it. When it comes to training, are they checking to verify that every person who gathers signatures had the training? Is there a way of tracking that?
Absolutely. There's a way. First you sign up, then you have to take the quiz. Your quiz scores go in. And then when you come, if you come to my house, I will ask you some questions to see if you know what you're talking about. They've asked us to give you the 20 question quiz, but I don't usually do that.
How many do you have to get right?
You have to get them all right.
I took the training, I don't know, weeks ago. I don't remember a quiz. Was there a quiz?
I don't
Yeah.
either.
They, some of us who took training a long time ago, there wasn't the quiz.
Right.
That happened afterward when it, now, like Lucy had mentioned earlier, now you can listen to the recording, look at the slides, take the quiz.
Mhm.
So since I didn't take the quiz, does that mean I'm not officially trained?
You already have petitions.
I have petitions.
I think it's moot. Where'd you get your petitions from?
In
The league?
Clifton, at the church. What's that church there? Is it Lutheran? I forget.
You mean at the Presbyterian Church in?
Presbyterian Church. In
You got
Clifton.
them from the League of Women Voters.
That was the league.
Office.
I mean, the questions are like, can you sign your own petition? I mean,
Right.
literally, can you?
Oh, they
know.
are.
Can you
I'm
just leave
sure.
can you leave a petition out and let people sign it? No,
No.
because you have to witness every sixth. So those are the kind of questions they ask.
But you know what? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a question like, oh, I took the front pages off of my book so that somebody could read it. No, you can't do that. You can't take your book apart. So, it's everybody processes differently when they sit through these meetings. And that's why the quiz is there, just to help refresh. It's redundant on purpose. The slides, the recording, and the quiz, they're redundant because you hear it 3 times.
Yeah, and you can't print your own petitions.
Right.
Right. I have friends who live in Utah, and I thought he told me they had an independent commission, but they didn't make it bulletproof, and they're heavily Republican. So the commission came up with 3 Republican districts and 1 Democratic, and the state legislature said, "Thank you for your work," threw it out and drew up 4 Republican districts. That's what they got.
Every state has its own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not listed here as having an independent commission, so
It may not, it's some kind of commission that he thought was independent. So maybe he's
Yeah.
on whether it was independent, but You know, it would have to
Well-
be independent to draw up one with a Democrat.
Gene, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks,
And,
Jean. That was great.
And
Thank you.
please feel free
It
to
was-
email me with questions. And if I need to connect you, I need to connect. Oh, Greg, you're already reaching out to Andy. Sue, you need to get a Form 15. I had a couple of in-depth questions that I needed to get in the weeds to answer, so I'll try to do that.
all right. Thank you very much.
everybody.
Thank you,
And
Jean.
we'll make
Thank
sure we get the
you.
distributed.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Uh,
Really
care.
good presentation. Thank you.